Welcome to today's Global Connections program. I'm Bill Miller. What can music, especially folk music, do to help shine the spotlight on societal problems such as human rights violations? What is one musician doing to make a difference in this area and work to create a better world? We'll be back in just a moment to talk about these and other important issues. Welcome back to our program. Folk songs and folk singers are often thought of as the consciences of many areas of the world, many countries. My guest today is one such folk singer who has really been the sort of the heart and soul and the conscience of not only the United States but many areas of the world. Peter Yarrow of the renowned United States folk song trio of Peter, Paul, and Mary earned his Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology from Cornell University in 1959. He co-wrote Puff the Magic Dragon, which is probably one of the best-known songs worldwide. Peter received the Allard K. Lowenstein Award in 1982 for his advocacy for human rights and peace. Peter Yarrow, welcome to today's Global Connections program.
I'm delighted to see you once again, Bill. There's much to talk about because we are in a very challenged period of time, and because there's much movement, like the Arab Spring, that completely is out of the blue. It's unanticipated. So we were trying to say, okay, we're going to move the chess pieces in this way. All of a sudden, they moved under their own steam. And in a similar sense, a lot is happening domestically that has me very much involved, and internationally. So we have good things to talk about.
Certainly do, and we haven't done this for about 2 years. I'm delighted that you're back.
Yes,
Let's just talk for a minute or two about Peter, Paul, and Mary. Peter, Paul, and Mary had some wonderful songs, and they all had a message. They all resonated with the public in the United States and in many parts around the world. But a lot of your songs dealt with human rights violations, civil rights violations. You were active. You marched with Dr. Martin Luther King in the United States. How did you decide that you wanted to focus on that particular area? And Peter, Paul, and Mary wanted to get involved to help raise the visibility of these problems, not only in this country, but worldwide.
Well, with Peter, Paul, and Mary, it was a natural evolution, as it is with other folk singers, because the songs themselves take you there. You know, the song, for instance, I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, way down by the riverside. Down by the riverside, I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield. Down by the riverside, study the war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. So you have a tradition here. That was a Negro spiritual, became a peace song. You have a song, we shall overcome, we shall overcome. We shall overcome. Now that song, again, a Negro spiritual. It was sung when the wall came down, in the Soviet Union. It was sung in the Philippines when they had their bloodless revolution. It's these songs have a message, and when you sing them, they tell you that there is history on your side. If you are an advocate for fairness, equity, you could say, for peace and freedom. Well, that's very esoteric in a way, peace and freedom. But what is concrete is fairness. If you have unfairness, rank unfairness, so that 1% of this country owns as much as 80% of the lowest portion of the economic spectrum, you have the conditions for rank unfairness, for the contradiction of what the United States is all about. And that is something we have watched happen more and more profoundly in recent years, where the distance between the haves and the have-nots becomes more profound. And that's the real struggle now that's going on in the rest of the world. It's not so much, oh, you know, this is about your color of your skin, haves and have-nots. And in our own country, the struggle that we see, that we're dealing with, and this is something I've been involved with recently with Tim DeChristopher, has to do with something that is far more extensive in other countries, which is collusion between the government and the corporate entities. In this case, we have the democracy process here, which allows people to get elected because of the value of what they have to offer the people, and people to vote on that, is skewed because so much of the election is determined by how much money you have for TV ads. And that, when it's provided by the wealthy and the corporations, means that the elected officials are beholden to these corporate entities, so that you'll see gas and oil exploration with this auction that Tim DeChristopher interrupted, which had so many irregularities that the Secretary of the Interior had the bids reversed. And what we have to do in this country is return the democratic process to the people, not let our electoral political candidates be given that kind of money so they win.
The scenario you created or described is really sort of a microcosm of what's happening in many areas of the world. And this, of course, many of these issues are dealt with at the United Nations. They are focusing on the haves versus the have-nots. They have the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. 8 goals that are logical, that are practical, that are achievable to reduce abject poverty by 50%. You have primary school education for all students, to promote sustainable development so we don't destroy the earth for future generations.
Well, that's
but
the
these,
point.
and of course, out of all of this, a lot of this deals with the absurdity of war. And I know you have spent a large number of your songs, and the philosophy of your songs deal with war and how we get into so many of these wars. I remember probably the most famous, I guess, anti-war song was "Where Have All the Flowers Gone?"
Sure, it goes, where have all the young men gone? Long time passing. Where have all the young men gone? Long time ago. Where have all our young men gone? They've gone for soldiers, everyone. Oh, when will they ever learn? Oh, when will they ever learn? Where have all the soldiers gone? They've gone to graveyards. Where have graveyards gone? They've gone to flowers. Where have the flowers gone? Young girls have picked them. It's a never-ending cycle. What I'm saying is what we have in this country, instead of the essence of the antithesis of the kind of corruption that exists in other parts of the world, the pride in our nation as a nation that is relatively free of that is slipping away. And we must preserve that. How do we do that? And that goes back to the music. If we educate kids to grow up, to feel like a community so they're not pushing the other way, say you're the wrong color, you're the wrong religion, look at you, the way you're dressed, you're disgusting. All this ridicule builds to bias, hatred, war, Holocaust, and that's called the pyramid of hate. So my work now with Operation Respect, and we're in 22,000 schools here in the United States, we're in Israel, funded by the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv, and with the Department of Education, the Ministry of Education in Israel. We went from 4 pilot schools to 25 schools and a website. We're now in Ukraine, again funded by the U.S. Embassy, with the Peace Corps, working with the Peace Corps to do what? To allow kids to grow up with a certain sense of respect for one another, hence Operation Respect. And for people watching, you go to operationrespect.org. You will get the program for free, the music for free, and you'll have the antidote to the kind of materialistic greed that is growing in this country. It's heartbreaking to me. Is this unpatriotic of me to say? No. Was it unpatriotic of me to say, I will march with and sing for Martin Luther King at the March on Washington in '63 in the Selma, Montgomery? Was that unpatriotic? Sure, we were attacked by doing that. I'm sorry. If you are honestly celebrating when your country does wonderful things, trying to keep it on a straight and narrow moral path, you're a patriot. And I beg to differ with those people who say that when we say, we have to look at what we've done that's hurt others, oh, that's unpatriotic. Never say you're sorry. That's corporate talk. That's not human beings talking.
There's a lot of discussion of corporate responsibility, and you see some corporations, many to some degree, who want to get more involved in working to preserve the environment, to educate people. They set up foundations, they work in these different areas. But there are others who are not into this mindset, and they're looking out for the almighty bottom line, or the dollar, so to speak, or the yen, or the peso, or whatever it might be. And of course, that creates a wider gulf between the haves and the have-nots.
Yes, it does.
But before we leave Operation Respect, let's talk about that for a moment. That's something. How did you decide you wanted to get involved in this? Did it just come to you one day and you said, "I think we should focus on bullying"?
The song is what I
okay.
heard. I'm a little boy with glasses, the one they call a geek. A little girl who never smiles, 'cause I got braces on my teeth. And I know how it feels to cry myself to sleep. I am the kid on every playground. I'm the one that's chosen last. I'm a single teenage mother trying to overcome my past. You don't have to be my friend, but is it too much to ask? Don't laugh at me. Don't call me names. Don't get your pleasure from my pain. In God's eyes, we're all the same. Someday we'll all have perfect wings. Don't laugh at me. I'm fat, I'm thin, I'm short, I'm tall, I'm deaf, I'm blind. Hey, aren't we all? And there's more. But that's the anthem. The name of the program in 22,000 schools in America is Don't Laugh at Me. I've been doing it for 13 years. What started it was knowing, look, we have something that encapsulates it, that reaches the heart. If you can open the hearts of kids, then in can come those other curricula of acceptance, sensitization, nonviolent conflict resolution, creating a strong community within the classroom, within the school. And we're in Hong Kong, we're in Croatia, we're all over the world, and we didn't ask to. They ask us to come because this is an effective tool. What I feel is that inherently corporations are not there to be good guys or gals. They're there to make money. That's what their purpose is. They have a responsibility. And if we let that dedication to the bottom line overrule the sensibilities that make a healthy country, and we let it go into an arena where you have Enron and the banks and the insurance companies and the oil and gas companies running amok, what you have is what we have, which is that we are beyond the 350 parts of carbon in the air per what is it, million, billion, whatever it is. That is the irreversible point at which my granddaughter will not have a livable world. So what is our job? Our job is to stop that. How do we do it? By politely talking to each other. I'm afraid that's not the only vehicle. I'm afraid that Tim DeChristopher took it to a place where he said, I will interrupt this auction because this collusion is making America in the advance guard of destroying the environment, which is not Never Never Land. It is tomorrow. We have a year, a decade, but we've got to reverse this for the whole world. Look at the front pages. This is not a mythology. This is not a theory. This is a reality. We sit here in New York with the sweating heat that we haven't experienced before, making records, and we say, oh, it's a theory. It's not a theory. We have to act on it, and we have to act as a moral nation that is not interested in this year's profits as much as it is interested in the good of the nation and the good of our children. That's what we have to do, and we have to do it because if we're going to be world leaders in doing this, and I think we have that responsibility, then we have to take the bull by the horns and go back to what our humanity is first, not what our bottom dollar line is for the profits of corporate entities and those who have a greater wealth. I guess I'm not emphatic enough, I can tell.
Well, you're watching Global Connections Television, which is a privately funded program. The opinions expressed on Global Connections are solely those of the moderator and his guest. We'll be back in just a moment after this important message.
Hey, this is Edward Norton for the United Nations. Here's a question for you. If you had to choose, would you rather give up one of your lungs and take away all clean water from your kids, or pay a little more for a shrimp cocktail and a cheeseburger? Sounds kind of obvious, right? But incredibly, every year, we as a global community are making the wrong choice, the foolish choice, to sacrifice our health and the health of our kids and our future by destroying millions of acres of the world's forests every year to support non-essential industries like cheap beef, shrimp, and palm oil production. Now, most people, especially if they live in a big city like I do, wouldn't say that their life depends on a forest or on trees, but it does. Without large, healthy forests on this planet, we would literally have no oxygen to breathe, no clean water to drink, much less food to eat, and almost no medicines to heal us when we're sick. Now, it's time we get our priorities straight. The UN has declared this the International Year of Forests. Join me in calling on our leaders to protect our planet's forests and our future health from the ravages of unsustainable industry. Don't think that you can't make a difference. You can. To find out what you can do, go to www.un.org/forests. Thanks a lot.
Welcome back to our program. Today we're focusing on the issue of folk music and the role it can play in helping to raise the consciousness level of people not only in the United States but around the world. My guest is from the renowned trio of Peter, Paul, and Mary, Peter Yarrow, and he's been involved in a variety of civil rights actions over the years. He's been the conscience of the world to some degree. Peter, we're talking about problems that are confronting not just the United States but the whole world, and of course Edward Norton was talking about the use of forests and our lifestyle really in general.
The despoiling of the land, in this case the forests, but it's also, for instance, the land near the national parks that were sold at a surreptitious auction and then had to be returned because it was illegal, and that's from the complicity. Yes, what happens is that we need to stop this, but we need to stop it by understanding why it is being caused. It is being caused because the bottom line of money has mobilized these changes and the support of these changes, not only by corporate entities, but by the people whose elections they pay for. So if we want to stop America's advancing role in the despoiling of forests and we have to, and then I'll talk about internationally the reality. What we have to do is stop creating an election cycle where elections can be bought by people who supply the money for the TV ads, which, do you know that our elected officials spend 30% of their time in Congress raising money? That's obscene. We shouldn't have that. You all get the same amount of money. Why won't we do it? Because of the corporate entities that don't want that to occur. They want to be able to have their lobbyists. They want to be able to force this conspiracy, this collusion. So what are we going to do? And what does it relate? How does it relate to the rest of the world? The reality is that we are looking at massive, in the world, if we continue on this road, massive dislocations of environmental realities, so that there will be intolerable starvation, as there right now is. We're watching this. It was just in the New York Times yesterday. I mean, we've got in Africa, you know, and of course there's fear about going there because, you know, there are a lot of these UN workers have been killed. So we're experiencing nothing but their experience relative to what's going to happen. This is not about it's being warmer. It's about the devastation of the possibility of a viable environment for our world. And you know something? It's linked to the inequities in wealth. Because the greater inequity there is in that regard, the more there is this collusion. So we really have to understand that the United States has to use its power to try and reverse this process, not by telling people what to do, but by doing it ourselves and supporting other people's efforts to do that. We have to deal now with issues of survival. We've spent, you know, hundreds of billions of dollars to make a war based upon a lie in Iraq. There were no weapons of mass destruction. We knew that, and it came to pass. Now, because of that war, the situation in Afghanistan that had cooled down became hot again. And we're faced with this terrible choice because what the Taliban want to do is inconceivable. You have no question. But these are cruel choices. The same kinds of cruel choices that are going to have to be made in terms of extremely sophisticated medical care for the aged. As I get to that age, I'm aware of this. So what do? We have to do what we can to hold the line. We have to repair our hearts, reignite with music, and that's how we do. That's one of the ways we do it. You know, with Tim de Christopher's effort, it's called Peaceful Uprising. At first, they weren't really so interested in singing, but then when we got going, they said, we'll be a movement when we sing like a movement. This is not a benign instrument. When I sang at the night of the trial or the day of the sentencing, just as it was the case that Peter, Paul, and Mary sang, if I had a hammer, I'd a hammer in the morning and in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out a war. Everybody was dancing and singing and connected in their hearts. And when the Freedom Riders went to jail, the money came from the ACLU, or the Emergency Civil Liberties Union, and said, oh, well, you can be bailed out of jail. They said, we're not going to take this. We have not come here to be bailed out of jail. We've come here to stop the vicious reality of racism and lynching and second-class citizenship and denial of voting in our country for people of color. We're going back to jail, said John Lewis, who's now a member of Congress. So they go to jail, and the jailers are astonished. They're happy. They've got broken bones, they're lacerated, they've been bitten by dogs, but they're happy. They're so happy they're singing. Ah, they say. That could be it. Tell them they can't sing. They say, you can't sing. I said, we're singing. We'll take away your mattresses and you'll sleep on cold steel. We're singing. Do you think that singing is benign? No. Singing is essential to bring hearts together. That was, you could be beaten in jail in South Africa with songs.
It is true in the United States and it's true around the world. And Peter Yarrow, I want to thank you for bringing us these words of wisdom and really focusing attention on these major problems. And thank you for a very interesting and a very informative program.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you, Bill.
Good to see you.
I don't get nicer as I get older. I get more emphatic.
You're right on target.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on today's Global Connections. I'm Bill Miller.